But to make the plane this light, the Zero's builders need to make some serious design compromises.
And I mean, that's hollow, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and it's thin. I mean, it's almost like it's really thin sheet metal.
Japanese Zero, that's one of the thing that's special about this airplane is by design, you know, they built it as light as they could, as maneuverable as it could be, best power to weight ratio of anything that was available back in 1940, and had really no defensive capability. It was all offensive. They had no armor plating, no self-sealing fuel tanks. So the good of it, it was a very maneuverable, great plane to fly. The bad of it, it wouldn't take any damage. It got shot down pretty easy.
The Wildcat, on the other hand, is built like a tank.
Okay, Steve, so now we're at the Wildcat, and man, I just pounding on this, and this is a stubby, rugged little airframe.
Exactly, the Wildcat. That's why they call it Grumman Iron Works. I mean, they're overbuilt. There's a time of development, you know, that they didn't split the decimal point. I mean, if there was a question, they made it stronger than it needed to be, and this is a good example of it.
I mean, this thing could really take a beating, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you know, the way that the design of the structure and the simplicity of the construction. I mean, if you look at it, there's not a lot of curved parts on this thing, so they could just crank them out.
Now, being rugged obviously lends itself to being more durable in combat for defensive purposes. Talk to me a little bit about kind of the defensive features that Grumman put into this.
Well, they had a lot of armor plate. They had a big armor plate behind the pilot.
This slab of steel weighs 94 pounds. And in front of the pilot, there's a 25-pound bullet-resistant windscreen.
The fuel cell is made of a rubber, real thick, self-sealing fuel tank is what they called it. You know, if it took a bullet passed right through it, and chemicals would react with the fuel and seal up the holes.
Features like these would sure make me feel a lot safer if I was driving a Wildcat into battle. But even though the Zero lacks them, it's hardly a primitive aircraft. In fact, its engine is so advanced that many observers still believe it's a copy of a U.S. design.
So here we are up front at the engine, and you know, Steve, I heard a rumor that this engine was a direct copy of an American engine similar to the one that's in the Wildcat.
Yeah, you know, the people that you hear those rumors from don't give the Japanese enough credit. You know, they designed stuff just like anybody else. It's a 14-cylinder engine, and I think that's probably about where it stops. It's a little smaller than the Wildcat engine. The lay of the back of the engine, the supercharger, it's all completely different. But there is some interesting points. The propeller, for instance, is manufactured exactly like a Hamilton Standard. It even has Hamilton Standard stamps with Japanese writing on it. As proof that Japanese purchased the rights to build that kind of equipment.
So they didn't steal it, they just bought it and built it themselves.
That's it.
So the Zero's engine is a completely Japanese design. But it does have one major feature in common with the Wildcat's power plant. Both are what's called radial engines. That's an engine with the cylinders arranged around the crankshaft like spokes on a wheel, instead of an inline layout on either side of the crankshaft like a P-51. Radials are air-cooled, simpler and easier to work on aboard aircraft carriers. They're also more resistant to battle damage than inline power plants, which have complex and vulnerable liquid cooling systems.
The radial engine is all contained right there, where a liquid-cooled engine has radiators and plumbing and other areas. You know, the engine, an inline engine, is smoother, but the radial engine, just for ease of maintenance and caretaking, so to speak, was superior to the inline engine.
So this thing could take a little bit of a beating and still keep going.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Pug Sutherland will need every bit of his Wildcat's ruggedness during his dogfight with Saburo Sakai. That's because another way the Zero is optimized for offense is with its powerful armament.
These are the big heavy hitters. We've got a 20-millimeter cannon right here, one on each wing. And then up top side, there are two comparable to our like 30 caliber machine guns.
So this is a 20 millimeter.
Right.
You know, the 20 millimeter shell is the same caliber that the Raptor has. So all the guns that we have in our fighters nowadays, they're all still 20 millimeters.
Still 20. Aerodynamically, I guess that's the right shape.
I guess they figured something out a long time ago.
A long time ago, yeah.
Now, for its day, was the 20 millimeter a fairly large round? I mean, it obviously packed a big punch.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, my American fighters really didn't use any cannon work at all. It was all machine guns. You know, a 50 could fire more rapidly, so the American theory was just get more bullets out there, where the airplane like this didn't have the volume to carry the ammunition, so they went with a bigger punch.
Yeah, but you get hit by one of these 20 millimeters and you could be in a world of hurt.
Well, I believe it, yeah.
Speaking as a combat experienced pilot, I can tell you right now that I sure as hell wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of one of those 20mm rounds. As for the Wildcat, it doesn't carry a cannon. Depending on the model, it mounts either 4 or 6 50 caliber machine guns in the wings.
So that's a tough, resilient little plane that had good offense, good defense. It's like the little plane that could.
And it was a little plane that did.
The question is, will the Wildcat be the little plane that does for Pug Sutherland? Or will Saburo Sukai and the Zero triumph in the skies over Guadalcanal? A closer look at both of these illustrious pilots may give us some clues. Pug Sutherland's dogfight with Saburo Sukai over Guadalcanal pits two superb combat pilots against each other. Yet, like the planes they fly, there are significant differences between them. One thing they have in common, however, is that they are both partly molded by difficult economic circumstances.
Pug Sutherland was not unlike many young men of his generation. He had been alive when Charles Lindbergh had flown across the Atlantic in 1927 and been inspired by that. And also he grew up in the Great Depression, hard economic times, and he joined the Navy as an enlisted man before winning an appointment at the Naval Academy, from which he graduated in 1936. Saburo Sukai came from a poor farming family in Japan, and his father died when he was in 6th grade, and he went to live with an uncle for a time, and things didn't work out. And really, to save face and to launch a new dimension in his life, he joined the Navy at the age of 16 and was in the Navy all the way through the end of World War II.
Like his Wildcat, Pug is tough, a fighter, someone who never backs down.
Well, Pug was an athlete, and that's really how he got his nickname, was from his boxing career, Pug, for being pugnacious. And he was well liked by his Naval Academy classmates, and was really, they said, even though he didn't intend to be the life of the party, he was always the life of the party. He also, in flight school, demonstrated a tremendous aggressiveness, and he was a hard worker and a quick learner.
Sukai is also an exceptional flight student, although the training methods he endures are much different from those employed with Pug.
It was very rigorous. They were put to the test to see who would be the most competitive and who had the greatest warrior spirit. They'd do acrobatics just to learn, just to test their balance and what their capabilities would be. And really very few graduated compared to how many entered.
There were something like 1,500 men from all over the nation that applied. The program in his particular class only took 70 out of 1,500. And out of that 70, only 25 graduated. The rest washed out during the course of the program. Sukai was an exceptional pilot and student. He graduated first in his class. Of that 25, only 10 went into fighters. The others went into other mission roles, bombers and so on. So it's a very select and small group of men.